Hey, if you've been in my space before, welcome back. If you're new to my space, my name is Hedy Shaw. I'm a body worker and a mindfulness teacher, and I support humans to break free from the construct of today's society, to create their unconditioned lives, to turn setbacks into strength, experience greater vitality and creativity and trust in their bodies through the magics of mindfulness, functional strength training, and postural alignment. Today, I want to talk about reverse psychology, a way that I often use to work with my clients to establish new habits, new ways of living, and a new lifestyle. We live in this world that bombards us with all the shoulds, all the things that we should be doing to live a healthy life or to live a thriving life. And oftentimes these shoulds and shouldn'ts get so overwhelming that we're not only living a thriving life, but we're living an overwhelmed life. Before we continue, I think it's important to understand the meaning of reverse psychology. Let me read it to you. Reverse psychology is a persuasion technique that involves advocating for the opposite of what you want in order to get yourself or someone else to do what you actually want. It's also known as strategic anti-conformity, which is very on brand with living an unconditioned life. I came across this practice for myself when I was dealing with eating disorder and then also obsessive exercising in the past. Reverse psychology works by appealing to people's desire for independence or to rebel against being directly persuaded. When someone feels like they're making their own decision, they may act more adamantly in the opposite direction of what's being suggested. This is called reactings, a psychological phenomenon when someone has a negative emotional reaction to being persuaded. As I was editing this video, I started digging even deeper into reverse psychology, in particular around why it's not as commonly used. Because I personally found it insanely powerful in breaking patterns and in changing myself and the patterns of my clients. When I dug a little bit deeper, I came to two important things. Number one is reverse psychology can be controversial because critics argue that reverse psychology might downplay mental health or oversimplify motivation. It can even backfire for individuals with low self-esteem or trust issues. So the question remains, does it empower people to change or reinforce negative patterns? And the second thing is it challenges traditional thinking. Most advice are linear, right? Set a goal, make a plan, execute it. Reverse psychology flips the script, which can feel contradictory or sometimes even manipulative. And people may avoid it because it's not as straightforward as set a goal, make a plan, and execute it. Having said all of that, I think like any other modality, you can abuse it, you can manipulate it, and the more you understand human psychology, the more you have power to manipulate people. But I think having integrity is crucial when it comes to practicing any of these. So then having those important conversations around why we're doing this, and if I'm using it, I'm clear on why I'm using it on myself. And when I have these conversations with clients as well, I'm very clear on why we're doing it and how we're actually flipping the script in the brain, in the narrative, and we are creating scenarios that we can actually be succeeding in it. I want you to keep that in mind as you're watching the rest of the video. I don't know if you identify as a rebel. I definitely do. That's why it works for me. I also found it to be extremely effective with my clients when we start working together. Oftentimes when they come through the door, they have this whole vision of how their work with me should look like, because now they hired a movement coach or a personal trainer to kick their ass. So they have their guards up and they're so ready to be challenged and then prove to themselves that they're gonna fail again. But when they walk through the door, after the original assessment and me understanding their characters, if I feel like they already have this narrative within them that they're prone to failing and they're really difficult on themselves, and they often create these comprehensive, extensive plans for themselves, I am the one trying to make it simple. So simple that oftentimes at the beginning their ego gets bruised because they're like, oh my God, I'm coming to you because I want to do all of this. But then the truth is, you only make progress by showing up and doing the work. If the work is really hard and complicated for you, so you won't be doing it, so you won't get any result. And this work, this time, this energy, this money that you're spending working with me is useless. Let's make it count by making it really, really simple and really, really easy to do. Oftentimes our brain or our ego want to do all the things the right way, do every single thing, do an hour of exercise every single day. And when we have the all or nothing mentality, we get the nothing, not all. Because we don't do anything and we get so overwhelmed by all the things that we should be doing that we don't take any steps. I'm using the example of movement for this video, but this way of thinking can be tailored to a lot of different things that you might have the desire to establish in your life. In the case of movement, instead of thinking that you'll be training 6 times a week, an hour a week, and you go to the gym every single day at 6 a.m. in the morning, and then you keep that going, you might start doing that for a week and then you fall through. If you're one of those people that you actually do it, so then this video is not for you. I'm talking to people who are struggling to establish a habit and they create these extensive, comprehensive plans, but they don't follow through with it. Maybe this time, instead of creating an extensive plan, make it so small, so insignificant that I know your ego is going to be bruised, but trust me, that's going to change the game for you. And I always say this, all of this is an invitation. You can pick it up if it works for you, or you can just let it go if it's not something for you. But if you try the all or nothing pathway and that didn't work out for you, there's no harm in giving this a try. So instead of thinking that you should be doing an extensive workout every single day, I want you to think about, what if you start with once a week? Or you could make it a daily thing, but only for 5 minutes. And I'm surprised at why we don't see more people talking about the reverse psychology and use it in the health and well-being space. And the funny thing is, I have so many clients that they come to me and they say, I never in my entire life thought I would be one of those people who actually wake up in the morning and do the things. So I often get them to do during the week and then take time off during the weekend. But they still show up to the weekend thing, even though I encourage them to take time off and they don't have to do the routine. But because it's so tangible, it's so small, and then they get to enjoy it because now they have this track record with themselves that I actually show up, I actually do the work. I'm not that lazy ass that I thought I was. You don't have those negative narratives about yourself anymore. You start repairing your relationship with yourself. And this is no longer the ego game. This is coming from a different place, because gradually you start seeing that even with 5 minutes and 10-minute practices, you can make massive progress. And not only that, sometimes you show up for 5 minutes and you stay for a lot longer. And I started this work because I've been so passionate about movement my entire life. And I wanted to share the joy of the movement when I originally started my business. And now looking back, my success wasn't in being so committed. My success was in showing up as I was, showing up as I needed. Like there are so many days I tell myself I'm going to only show up for 5 minutes. And sometimes that 5 minutes turn into half an hour. Sometimes it turns into the best workout I've had. And so many times I just stick to that 5 minutes. And that's enough for me to keep my word to myself. So often we lose trust in ourselves because we don't keep our words to ourselves, because we create these crazy plans that expects us to turn into high functioning robots. And it's so normal if you are a human, you want to rebel against anything that tries to control you, and you don't have a choice. And I think practicing to give yourself a choice and creating your life in a way that on a day-to-day basis, you practice making a choice among the things that you've got going on rather than dictating yourself into being a robot, which is the narrative that we see across board in the well-being and health space. So if I wanted to dissect this even more, and let's say you come to me and you want to create a plan for yourself, how would we start that? So some of the questions that I find helpful to ask at the beginning of our session, and that would be checking in with yourself and looking at all the ways you think that you succeeded before. Sometimes the way we succeeded before could create inspiration for where we're going. And sometimes we are being asked to completely change the way that we show up to the world and to show up to the things that we're creating and establishing in our lives. So that's when you need to be discerning to choose where you are in your life. But it's always an important and helpful place to reflect on. The last time you succeeded, it doesn't have to be necessarily in the health and well-being space. It can be in your work. It can be in your creative endeavor, whatever that is. Just letting that experience becoming a model or a potential model or a way that you get inspiration for what you're creating right now. And then after that, so you're thinking of, okay, what is it that you want to focus on? For example, someone comes to me, they're like, I'm super stiff and I want to get into a good mobility routine. I am an advocate for having a combination of mobility and strength because I really believe strengthening helps with mobility if it's done correctly. So then we start somewhere as where their priority is. Maybe we focus on more of restoring their posture and incorporating 10 minutes, 15 minutes mobility practices on a day-to-day basis. And then we slowly build up from that because now they already trust themselves a lot more with establishing routine, right? Okay, so I'll give you an example of patterns that I've experienced, patterns I've seen in my clients, and how they didn't succeed, and then how they could potentially tailor it. And I will give you a few examples of how you could change that up. And I also will give you a workout plan for a week that you can do starting in the new year or starting right now. You can check out my description box for that. Let's say you're one of those people that you buy a program online, and this program, even though it's a great program, it's an hour long, it requires you to be in the gym, and gym is not that far from you, it's like 10 minutes drive each way. And then you start the program, and then you try to wake up earlier and try to optimize your sleep and all of that. And so what happens is you go for a week and then work gets busy and then you didn't have enough sleep at night. And then you wonder whether or not you should be prioritizing your sleep. Always prioritize your sleep over training, always. But then let's say you miss a few sessions and then you start losing motivation. You start losing trust in yourself and you feel like you failed at the promise that you made to yourself. You almost feel numb towards keep going with the promise, or almost the promise doesn't have the potency that we need it to have. So if we were to use reverse psychology for this, what would that be? I will give you a few examples. Like example one of how you could change this up would be, instead of trying so hard to stick to that particular program because you've been off of training for a very long time, I would commit to daily workout at home for 15 minutes, doing whatever I know how to do. Or you may just pick some YouTube videos that are like 10 minutes, 15 minutes long, that you have a tentative plan for the week, that you show up. You're not committing yourself to a specific time. The goal is for you to move your body 10 minutes every day. The time doesn't matter because you don't want to turn into a robot, right? So you want to have your training be established around your life. Some people do better with have a specific time doing it, but personally for me, I find that to be very restrictive, and I don't enjoy my training if I do that. So that's one way to go about it. The other way to go about it is you really like this program and you want to do it, but it's a 6-day per week program. So you'd be like, I don't know if I can do a 6-day because there's not enough room for you to potentially not have time to go to the gym, right? So what you do is you spread that over 2 weeks. So that becomes, instead of a weekly program, that turns into a bi-weekly program. So you finish that 6-day program in a matter of 2 weeks. And then for the remainder of the days, you commit to maybe a stretching routine, or maybe a yoga session, or maybe just doing something at home. So you're creating room and flexibility for yourself, that if one day you didn't sleep enough and you can't go to the gym and there are a lot of stuff going on for you, then you've got room to do 5 minutes of breathing or 10 minutes of mobility session without the pressure of showing up to the gym every single day. So the other thing that is super important is not making your training 6-7 times a week. I highly recommend having it be 4 to 5 times a week. Even like sometimes once or twice a week could be enough, because that really changed the way you show up. I had clients that they started working with me once a week, and that created a massive change in the way that they show up in their entire life. So it really depends on what makes you tick. For me, if I don't move my body, I feel really sluggish, and that's why I try to keep the routine going throughout the week. So it's really understanding where you're coming from and what you need right now. So in my work, I'm a big fan of strength training, but through the lens of postural restoration and understanding what our human body in this day and age need, because all of us are sitting behind the computer and we're doing a lot of similar movement patterns, and we need to interrupt that for a healthier posture, a healthier movement pattern. So I created a tentative plan for you. You don't have to follow it. It's an invitation. You can start doing it if you want, or you can just ditch it all together. But the way I put it together is I already have plenty of workout videos and things like that on my YouTube channel. All of them are free. So I organize them into a weekly breakdown of how you can do them. All the videos are 15 to 20 minutes long, and you can make them harder, you can make them easier, depending on how you feel. So you can check out my description box and then take a screenshot of that, or just copy paste that in your note, and then stick to that. Keep it really, really simple. Keep it dumb. Like, we're so afraid of doing things messy and imperfect. I'm saying this, I've been seeing that in people's behaviors and patterns of like how not everybody needs that massive tracker that they tick. Some people really click with that, but a lot of people don't. If the mainstream narrative of habit building doesn't resonate with you, welcome to the club. I've been feeling that for many years, even though I try to put myself in these little boxes and condition myself and program myself into living a certain way, the way that the mainstream self-help world wanted me to. But seeing it in my community of clients and my peers, and then also in my own world, I realized that there are a lot of people, they don't resonate with the narrative that's oftentimes being fed to us by a man, potentially a white man, a narrative that in the capitalistic world that we need to be doing more and we need to be optimizing everything that we do. We need to be efficient in everything that we do. Yes, there is value in some of that, but I think we need to, at the end of the day, test things out and find what works for you. And if something doesn't work for you, don't think that something is wrong with you. It's just you haven't found the way in which that you thrive. And I'm hoping that this channel is creating that dialogue, that we can talk about the things that we get to create together, we get to discover together, rather than having someone else dictate what it should look like or what it shouldn't look like. If you've been here this far, I want to share with you a writing that I wrote to myself a couple months ago, and I feel like it's still feeling true for me, and I want to share it in the hope that it's going to inspire you, move you into the direction of creating your unconditioned lives. The title is The Unconditioned Self. She is free from people's perception of her and her perception of people, because she only gets her instruction from the Creator, from Mother Nature, and her true nature. She listens for a deeper, mysterious instruction before she moves. She doesn't move for the sake of busyness, doing and keeping up with more. She moves because she's been given instruction. She's free and knows acting confused, being victim, and pretending to be lost are signs of conditioning. She embodies pleasure, presence, and prosperity. She knows suffering in the game of ego, and she only seeks truth. She smiles when she creates for the world because she knows it's not of this world. She believes in herself and her vision of success and freedom. She remembers her success contributes to the greater good. She knows her success is inevitable. She knows everything is happening for her. She is the chain breaker in her lineage. She is a wealthy woman with many streams of income. She's strong and soft in the body, mind, and spirit. She's an athlete. She is the symbol of beauty, pleasure, and magic. She gets to have it all in this lifetime. I'm holding the vision for all of us as we're entering into this new portal, into this new year. May you choose to live your unconditioned lives.